rumaragasa.
Siguro yung sinabi sa atin ni Secretary should be interpreted in context. It was really based on the last sequencing run. But based on our data usage, marami pa ring Delta. Whether this is reflective of the fact that Omicron is already dominant in the country, we need to have further evidence po. So yun, Yusek, ang ating DOH po gumagawa ng sampling sa different hospitals and institutions around the country so that malaman talaga natin yung situations.
63 areas are now under granular lockdown amid the rising COVID-19 cases in the country.
Bagya pong tumaas ang bilang ng mga individual na kasalukuyang nakararanas sa mga pinakapahigpit nating community quarantine classification na nasa ilalim ng granular lockdown.
The health department says 99% of the new COVID-19 infections occurred in the last 14 days, as almost half of hospital beds in Metro Manila are now occupied. Can the healthcare system handle the severe outbreak? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. Also with us, Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5, and Robbie Alampay of One News. Robbie and ladies, well, it's a Tuesday.
Yes.
Tatlong araw na lang.
Tuesday?
May konting good news.
Ngayon,
May konting good news.
bumaba ng konti.
Yeah,
Bumakal.
but-
Although that might be
Pero
usual.
daming labs na hindi nag-submit.
Oo,
Yeah.
tsaka ang baba ng number na nag-test from the usual
Yes.
75 to 77,000,
Usual, yes.
it's now 58,000. So that might be a
Yeah.
factor there then.
Tuwing Tuesday and Wednesday, di ba ganyan naman?
Yes.
Usually.
And then, tsaka nagsishift na. I mean, that has to do also with yung kumukonti ang test. We have to qualify that. Karamihan, maraming nagtetest. I don't know kung karamihan, pero maraming nagtetest, as we all know, sa bahay na. Kumukuha na ng mga antigen test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, meantime, di ka pwede mag-hoarding, Ed, ng paracetamol.
Bakit ako nakita mo? Lahat na lang naman bibili online ako
Meron
nakikita
ng cup.
ninyo.
Pero ng cup, bawal na.
Saka hindi
Oo
naman
nga.
hindi naman ako mahilig magparacetamol eh.
Paano siya
Pero,
Alam mo, ang turo sa akin ng kapatid
alam mo,
kong doktor,
pati yung mga butika naman, self-imposed,
regulation, di ba?
quota na
They're
diba?
self-regulating themselves.
Kasi nga, oo.
You know, ang turo sa akin ng kapatid kong doktora, taga-UP kasi so medyo weird mag-isip eh. Ang turo niya sa akin, pag viral lang yan, idaan mo lang sa tubig tsaka pahinga.
Kasi self-limiting
Because
nga.
it is self-limiting.
Kasi-
Basta lang hindi serious yung iyong sintoma.
Yes.
Oo. Yeah.
Well, maybe we can ask our guest, no? Siya yung tunay na doktor. Di tanong natin.
Tunay doktor naman ang kapatid ko eh.
Doktor ang kapatid mo. Okay. O di tama nga. Sige, di tanongin natin yung guest din natin.
Okay. Sige, let's, well, we begin tonight with our first guest from the One Hospital Command Center, the Operations Manager, Dr. Bernadette Velasco. Dr. Velasco, thank you for joining us and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Yeah,
Good evening, Doc.
Good evening to everyone. Good evening to everyone.
Doc, well, I don't know if you can talk about this kasi we were talking about it a while ago lang. Anyway, you're a doctor and you're from the DOH. Baka you can give us some context here. Yung pagbaba ng daily case number today at yung pagbaba ng positivity rate, does that mean anything? Should that mean anything, or are we? Is it too early to come to any conclusion?
Yeah, because first time lang na bumaba from 33 ba yesterday
Yeah.
until today it's
28,
28,000.
yes.
So we just need to check for the trend pa, no? So we cannot tell na pababa na talaga yung cases natin. But hopefully pababa na talaga siya and we start opening up our economy again and have a normal life with COVID.
Yeah, Doc. And as we pointed
But
out
then
kasi,
again,
bumaba rin yun
critical lang no?
Bumaba rin yung number of tests
I mean,
Malaking binaba ng number of tests from
Yes,
75,000 yesterday. It's only 58,000 today. So I don't know if that's a factor, pero it might be a factor as well.
Yeah, it could be a factor. Usually kasi bina-validate pa natin yung mga laboratory results like the positive and negative. So probably there's a delay in the report.
Lucy.
But today they also, officially declared na critical na, no, yung level, di ba? And OCTA has called it severe. We're wondering, given the slight decline, whether we're just beginning to reach the peak or whether we've already peaked. Anong basa nyo dun sa critical? Now that we're critical, how long will this probably take? Kaya?
Yeah, so the projection that they are saying that this is not yet the peak. It could the cases could still increase, but we still don't know. We will just base on the trend on the number of cases that we from the DOH that they officially report.
Are the hospitals feeling it? Are the hospitals feeling the critical level?
So right now, based on our report, some of the hospital are already at critical risk. However, when you look at it on a regional level, we're still at moderate level, moderate risk, because there are still areas or there are still hospitals that have vacancies.
Okay, but let's isa po natin yun. Let's go by the regions. Of course, starting with NCR, and for that matter, the other urban centers, ano po yung itsura nun? We have to emphasize, as we said, no, pagka-critical, we're not just looking at the number of cases, we're also looking at the situation, occupancy rates, and so on in the different hospitals. So on a regional level, ano po itsura nito?
So for NCR, we're already at moderate risk for the COVID ward beds. But unlike Delta before na biglang tumaas talaga yung occupancy natin sa hospital. But right now, we're seeing a lot of mild cases. That's why they're not inside the hospital, or we're trying to move them out from the hospital. So far, NCR is the only region that is at moderate risk, and the rest of the regions are at low risk.
Doctor, ang problema ngayon, yung kahit hindi pa napupuno masyado yung beds, ang problema are the healthcare workers who are getting infected. Now, the Philippine Hospital Association, sabi nila, they're not bound naman daw by the order na i-shorten yung quarantine ng healthcare workers. Ano yung plan B niyo kung sakasakaling kulangin na nga tayo ng healthcare workers dahil sa dami ng infection?
Yeah, correct. So there's a lot of requests from the health facilities that their healthcare workers are getting sick. That's why we're isolating them. So that will directly affect the number of beds available in the facilities. So what we are currently doing, so as you know, DOH already released the shortened protocol based on upon the approval of the Infection Control Committee of the facilities. That's Plan A. Plan B is actually we're already implementing Plan B, which is augmentation from other agencies. Yung mga medical health workers nila, we're already augmenting them to the hospital, like we're tapping AFP and other agencies like PNP and BFP, and we're looking at other regions din po, no, na that could also augment in NCR.
From the other regions, you mean we're getting more healthcare workers?
Just like what we did during the Delta surge. So what we did is we look into those regions that have that are still at low risk. So we ask for their help and then augment it to the region. So same thing that what happened when other regions were already in surge, NCR naman yung pumunta doon sa mga regions na yun.
Pero paano
So
po
you
natin yung balance
acknowledge
yun? Because on the one hand, yung sa NCR, tayo lang ang moderate risk. Pero ang kagandahan naman si NCR, mataas na mataas din ang vaccination rate. On the other hand, yung mga regions, even outside of Metro Manila lang, na hindi moderate risk in terms of hospital utilization rate. Pero mas by definition, almost every region has a lower vaccination rate than Metro Manila. So on balance, ano po yung expect natin na trend doon pagdating sa paggamit ng mga hospital units?
Yeah, correct. So the vaccination program po kasi natin tuloy-tuloy. So especially on the regions na mababa pa yung kanilang vaccination rate. So just the program is just we're continuously doing the vaccination program. So in terms of the hospital, so of course we don't want the regions to be caught unaware of all of their situation. So we're already giving them yung mga situationers po natin, daily situationers, and briefing to them so that they can also prepare their regions or their hospitals. So like for example, they don't have enough beds, they need to purchase more beds or purchase more equipments, request for more equipments, and request for more augmentation so that when the time comes that they are already on surge or their utilization rate is going up, they are already prepared.
Pero Doc, nagre-reklamo na talaga yung healthcare workers. No? Marami kami na-interview kanina. Marami sa kanila talagang umaangal na para daw silang mga tinatratong parang mga makina na ayusin lang pagkatapos gagamitin ulit, no? Hindi pinapahina. At ngayon nga, yung Philippine Hospital Association, sinasabi na we're not bound by the rules. No? So while the government hospitals can probably make it compulsory for healthcare workers to observe your protocols, no? What about the private hospitals? Do you have suasion over them to follow the new protocols? What if they don't? I mean, what kind of situation could we be facing if they decide na, no, we want to go back to the 10-day or 7-day protocol?
Yeah, just like what we did before po, no? It never stopped that even the private hospital can ask augmentation from the government side. So we can provide additional healthcare workers so that their staff can also rest or even recover while they are still in isolation.
Pero sabi ng OCTA, if we follow the pattern of surges before, it starts in NCR and then after a few weeks, nasa regions na. So I guess your planning will have to factor in the possibility that the regions may soon be also high risk, no, or moderate risk, in which case they will need their own hospital healthcare workers.
Yeah, correct. So it's a repeat of what happened before, no, with Delta, Alpha, or whatever variant it is. So parang tuloy-tuloy lang from NCR and then going to Region 3, Region 4A, and then down to Visayas and Mindanao. So what we are currently doing is asking the hospitals to prepare to stockpile, check their logistics so that they'll be ready anytime.
Doc, kamusta
Yeah,
utilization sa regions 3A and 4? Kasi we heard na doon tumataas ngayon, as per OCTA a few days ago, doon ngayon tumataas yung numbers. How are they in terms of ward beds, isolation units, and ICUs?
So right now, based on our report, for Region 3, we're still at 35% or 35 to 40% utilization rate, while for Region 4A, we're at almost moderate threes from 45 to 55%.
Tumataas na rin, ha?
Tumataas na din. We can see na medyo tumataas na din yung utilization rate natin.
70 yung critical, no? Yung
70 is high risk.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Doc, meron na namang renewed push to expand access to telemedicine. Ano ba exactly mga ginagawa ngayon doon to make this happen? Kasi talagang mga tao gusto rin naman na more access to telemedicine, ano? Nadagdagan ba yung capacity natin?
So most of the DOH hospitals have already telemedicine services, so as with the private hospitals and even the LGUs. So as with the One Hospital Command Center, we started providing telemedicine since last year. We started around July of last year.
Pero nadagdagan na ba yung capacity? Kasi sabi ngayon, mas gusto nila mas extensive ngayon because they are expecting a surge nga in hospitalizations. Kahit dun sa mga mild lang, if it's an Omicron wave. So, nadagdagan ba yung capacity natin?
Yeah, mukhang nadagdagan na natin from last year to from the recent data that we have. Nag-increase naman yung mga telemedicine services natin.
Doc, there was earlier talk about rationalizing the hospital referral system, especially for situations like this, kung saan maaring tumaas yung demand, dahil mas maraming may sakit. In this particular case, mas maraming ang mild. So have we been able to fix the referral system, and in what direction?
Yeah, if you notice, we're pushing for the telemedicine services so that not all COVID cases will go to the hospital.
Yes.
So what we're saying now to the public is, if you feel that you have COVID and only mild symptoms, like you're not having a difficulty of breathing or not having changes in sensorium, so you're just having sore throat, low fever or colds and cough. So what you need to do is to inform your barangay health emergency response team, or you need to inform your local emergency operations center so that they can direct you what to do. So if your emergency operations center thinks that you're just having a mild symptoms, they will evaluate your home if you're capable of doing home isolation. So if not, they'll extract you and bring you to an isolation facility. That will help us decongest the hospitals.
Sa madaling salita,
Ma'am,
iwasang pumunta sa ospital hanggat hindi talaga kailangan. O hanggat kailangan talaga.
Yes.
Speaking of which, ma'am, beyond the utilization rates and the actual numbers, what can you tell us about the profiles of the people being accepted for moderate to severe symptoms in terms of age, in terms of demographics, and for that matter, in terms of vaccination status?
Yeah, I don't have the age profile, but however, I have the vaccination status of the patient. So majority of, we have a mix of fully vaccinated, partially vaccinated, and unvaccinated patient. But however, 84% of the unvaccinated admissions are all in severe or critical cases. So they are admitted in the ICU, and majority of the fully vaccinated are only mild and moderate cases.
So anong average length of stay nila sa hospital? Yung mga na-hospital nga na mild or moderate. Are they out of there within a week, 5 days, or anong average length of stay?
Yeah, for the asymptomatic, mild and moderate, of course, we don't want them to stay on a long time inside the hospital because we want to create space for the severe and critical cases.
So you mean you admit them kahit na asymptomatic?
The time that surge is just coming out, or when cases are coming out, some mild cases were admitted inside the hospital. So what we did are extracting the mild cases and bring them to an isolation facility, and then they complete the isolation period there.
Okay. So walang tumatagal naman doon na. What about yung moderate? Do they stay there for more than 4 days? I'm just wondering because this is a self-limiting virus.
Yeah.
And Yusek Berhere was saying na after 2 or 3 days, usually humuhupa na. Do they experience the same, and longevity of the virus in the hospital?
Yeah. Again, like mild, of course, we don't want them to stay long, but it will depend on the comorbidities of the patient. Sometimes they stay for 5 to 7 days. At least that's 5 days lesser from the isolation period.
Yusek, balikan ko lang uli yung telemedicine. Kasi marami nagtatanong is it free? Is it subsidized? Saka saan yung free? Saka covered ba yan ng PhilHealth dahil inutusan na yan na PhilHealth na i-cover, di ba? Sino yung pwedeng free? Sino yung qualified? Saka paano yan?
So for the DOH hospital, of course, it's free. And then there are PhilHealth home isolation package wherein you will have a face-to-face first, the consultation, and then if you're only having mild to moderate symptoms, you can be sent home and then just do the follow-up afterwards. And then, so that's the package for PhilHealth. And then there are HMOs or mga health cards that are offering also telemedicine. Of course, that's for a fee. And then also we have the private hospitals who are also offering telemedicine.
Okay.
Ang dominant variant na ay Omicron. Pero sabi ng Philippine Genome Center, 60% Omicron identified. So si DOH Secretary Duque was saying na this means 40% Delta. No? Are you feeling the 40% Delta in the hospitals? I mean, are we seeing that kind of severity?
Yeah, based on the articles, of course, they say that Omicron is having puro mga mild cases lang. Comparing it with Delta na puro mga moderate, severe, and critical cases. From what we are experiencing now at One Hospital Command Center, just because we're dealing more of the asymptomatic and mild cases, we're thinking na baka Omicron, but I cannot officially say na it's really Omicron.
Okay, Dr. Bernadette Velasco of the One Hospital Command Center. Ma'am, maraming salamat for joining us tonight. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
And good evening.
Ingat po.
Maraming salamat po.
We will just go into a break, so please stay with us. Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News. And now joining us is Comelec spokesman, Director James Jimenez. Director James, maraming salamat for joining us tonight at welcome back to the Chiefs.
Thank you very much for having me. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Sir, well, certainly, medyo disturbing yung nabasa namin sa Manila Bulletin, but we also read your statement, the statement of Comelec, and there were assurances from your end. Pero sir, I suppose the basic question is, can we tell with certainty that there was no breach? I mean, when there is a breach of the Comelec system, are there markers that are wittingly or unwittingly left behind by those who are able to, if they are able to, get into the system?
Well, that's usually the thing that you need to validate, whether or not there are signs of an intrusion. Number one, there are no signs of an intrusion right now. Second, the biggest evidence really of the intrusion is the claim that data had been stolen, na-exfiltrate yung data. Unfortunately, the data that they're pointing out as having been exfiltrated does not even exist in our system. So, again, the weight of evidence right now shows that there likely wasn't any breach. So that's why we're continuing to validate these allegations to make sure that we're not missing anything.
Yes, sir. Mr. Samaniego was saying that they sent you screenshots. They sent you those screenshots of the supposed data breach. Can you tell us what was shown in those supposed screenshots, just so we know that we are on the same page?
Well, the screenshots that were shown to us showed information about boards of election inspectors, their PINs, and their usernames. Again, this information is wrong. If you take into consideration where this information is supposed to be coming from, and you look at the information from that place now, that information does not exist, right? In fact, none of this information exists for anywhere in the Philippines. So they're showing data that purports to be one thing, but the thing that it's supposed to be doesn't square with that, because yun na nga, yung
let me see if I'm getting this right. So you're saying the data that was supposedly taken out from a particular place is not even kept in that particular place. So hindi
Or
man
is
lang
not-
hindi man lang dyan
or is not
nakatago.
it
Or it
generated?
doesn't exist
yeah.
yet.
Doon ako atras. But that particular piece of information, does it exist?
No,
And is
it's
it not even?
Not even. Kasi nga, okay,
So it was a fabricated. So it was a as far as you can tell, that is not data that you ever produced, that you ever held onto. And I don't know, and this is not to put words in your mouth, but does that leave the only other possibility that this purported data is basically fabricated? Certainly it was not the Comelec or any of its systems or any of its procedures that generated that kind of a data.
Right. That's what we're trying to rule out. Okay. That's something that we're trying to establish 100% for everyone's satisfaction. But as far as we're concerned, we know that this data does not exist. It is not in our system. It is not information that we are using currently. And we absolutely reject that this came from us.
So kasama ba sa investigation niya? Because you are still preparing, you're finalizing a report, di ba?
Yes, we
Ano
are.
ang investigation ninyo kung saan ang galing yung story? Because, syempre, gusto nyo rin makama kung paano nangyari yan.
Oh yes, oo po. Talaga po. No, mahalaga to kasi just by merely reporting this, even before even going into whether or not napatunayan nila yung nire-report nila, the fact na sinabi nila ito already undermines the credibility of the elections. So this is something that we need to vindicate, no? So we need to find out saan ang galing reporting, anong basis ng reporting, and we'll have to find out what we can do about it, especially if it is proven na mayroong deliberate intent dito.
Sir, can we back up a bit?
Sir, meron po bang database nga ng mga, kunyari, yung Board of Election Inspectors na yan and their PINs? You really have them during an election. It's just that you haven't established or put up that database right now. Is that a good way to frame it? In other words, magkakaroon yan, wala pa ngayon.
Yes.
And so kung ano man yung nakita nila, wala yan, walang pinanggalingan yan. So my next question is, when will you have that database ready? I mean, isn't that something that we should already have by now?
No, malayo pa po eh. Malayo pa eh. Precisely because you're not really, the election isn't happening tomorrow. There's no need for this sort of information right now.
Okay.
And it is a security feature.
Sir, but can you back up? Tell us what allows the BEI to get into the machine? Is that what it is? And when is that activated, or when is that pinned in? And by whom?
That's what the PIN is. The personal identification number essentially is the activation code for the VCM, right? So if you don't have the PIN for a VCM, you can't activate that VCM. That's precisely why this is so critical, such critical information. No, ang lumalabas kasi dito na na-expose na yung mga activation codes ng mga makina, which is not true. Why? Because there are no configurations for the machines yet. Ibig sabihin, the machines are not ready to be used yet. So there are no activation codes for the machine. There are no pins assigned to any boards of election inspectors. So where is this data coming from?
Could it be
When
old
is
the
that
data, sir?
usually done?
Could it be
When is that
2019 data?
usually done?
This will usually be done, Ma'am Luchi, pag malapit na yung elections. Normally, you're talking about maybe April na yan.
But sir, could it be old data? Could it be the old pins from 2019 or 2016 that they were able to get into? Is that possible?
Or from mock exercises, for that matter.
Yeah.
We looked at data from 2019, and it was not even from 2019. So it could go back further than that. But again, we'll have to discuss this with the authors. No? Where did this data come from? Where are they saying? Because we're not going to go on a fishing expedition ng kami lang, di ba? No one should be able to come up with some numbers and expect everyone else to prove them wrong, right? They should prove their allegations, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do our own checking. we're going to do our own checking, but they will have to come up with their own explanations as well.
Actually, that's the other thing I wanted to ask. I mean, the stakeholder right now is Manila Bulletin. This is a report that they're claiming as their exclusive. But beyond the bulletin itself, is there any group that's claiming responsibility for this?
No, there is no reporting on this, and no group has come forward to claim responsibility. In fact, in the article itself, there is almost no substantiation of the claim. Right? The article reads like this. A group said that they hacked the Comelec and we verified it, period. There's no proof of the verification. They don't show how they verified it. So you're right. The only stakeholder at this point is Manila Bulletin.
But this is not the first time that you had reports of the Comelec system being hacked. Can you tell us more about that? In previous elections, what happened?
This only happened once in 2016 po, when there was defacement of the Comelec website, and then later on we found out that the Comelec website had also been infiltrated. Basically, they got information from the precinct finder, which was active at the time. Now, what happened after that was we immediately shut down the precinct finder, and we put the entire website behind the firewalls of the DICT. Now, DICT is the premier science organization in the Philippines, and so we're very confident that its security features and security measures are solid. So we've hardened essentially the system. So is it the first time that the Comelec has been hacked? No, obviously, because in 2016 it happened. But the circumstances have changed drastically. In 2016, sabi nga ng National Privacy Commission, when they examined the whole problem and actually held criminal hearings against us, what they determined was that the Comelec was not ready to protect its own data. But that is not the case now, and the data has been protected since 2016.
Were the hackers in 2016 traced and were they penalized?
Yes, a couple of individual hackers were actually found. I believe cases were actually brought against them, but for some reason, I think those cases were dismissed. I have not had the opportunity to look back at what happened to those cases, but as far as I know, prosecution was given to the National Prosecution Service, and ultimately the cases were dropped.
What was the case, cybersecurity? Anong case yun?
Parang ganyan po. I can't remember exactly, but it was a case really of among, at the very least, vandalism of government property.
Sir, in an interview earlier this afternoon with Mr. Art Samaniego, the tech editor of Bulletin, I get the impression from that interview that these supposed hackers are white hats. In other words, they're supposed to be, I don't know if it's the right word, benevolent hackers who just want to test a system to see if it's vulnerable and report the vulnerabilities to the authorities. Is that the impression that you got from your conversation with Mr. Samaniego?
Well, that's certainly how he presented it. But I've seen very little in the way of the activities of this group to actually substantiate that. I mean, you'd expect that if someone were a white hacker, that they'd make every effort to actually bring it to the data subjects, right? Rather than going to print right away. But that's what happened here. They went to print before we even had an opportunity to validate their data. Mm-hmm. So how would you square that?
Yes, sir. But in any case, are you ready? Are you willing? Is Comelec willing to meet with these people in case that they do want to reach out, whether it's through bulletin or face to face?
Well, they should. They should take the initiative to reach out to us because right now, things are looking pretty shaky. Again, we're looking at a situation where some people might be thought to be undermining the credibility of elections, and that's a felony offense. So they have to do the right thing, I guess.
Do you have any reason to believe that this could be politically motivated?
We don't need a reason to believe it's politically motivated. It's the election season. So, I mean, as far as motivations consider, there's a dime a dozen. And besides, simply disrupting the credibility of the elections in itself is a goal for some quarters, I'm sure.
Well, speaking of the election season, you're about to rule on the disqualification case against the Bongbong Marcos. What about the dispute in the PDP Laban? How long will we have to wait for that decision?
I'm also waiting for that, but that has been submitted for resolution, Ma'am Ana Marie. So we're just really waiting for that to be decided on. I still cannot give you a timetable for that, though.
Yung petition naman nila, nung isang grupo to extend the filing of certificates of candidacy. Is there any progress on that petition?
Well, that was discussed last week at the Commission on Bank session last week, but it was deferred for this week to give our law department an opportunity to respond to all of the points raised by the petition. You see, the petition forwarded some, well, I guess you could call them legal arguments.
Yes.
And the commission decided to address each one so as to avoid having to deal with this again in the future. But basically saying na tapusin na natin to, let's respond to all of this para we don't have to keep on replying to these questions.
So we shouldn't find it significant that you didn't dismiss it outright.
No. I think in the interest of thoroughness, the Comelec decided to wait for the actual response of the law department. However, of course, the sense is that this is really a reach, no? Medyo kakaiba yung hinihingi nila.
Okay.
How are you assessing the
outside of
current
the petitions
pandemic?
that we have to
Kaya
Rob.
nakarinigan.
Oo nga. Sir, how are you assessing the current pandemic situation? I mean, the surge, how is this affecting, if at all, Comelec schedules or timetables?
Well, in the sense that we've had to reduce our workforces right now, then yes, it will definitely have some impact on the work that we do. Thankfully, we're able to accommodate these changes still, and we don't expect any major delays moving forward. One of the things that we're really looking at is the possibility of having situations or places where COVID cases can rise to the point where you have BEIs just not showing up for work. That's the situation that we're looking at, and ultimately that's the situation that we've been saying makes it possible that there might be some suspensions if that sort of thing happens, right? But this is very important. The suspensions will not be the long drawn out suspensions that these no-L scenario builders are trying to push. When we talk about suspending elections because of something that happens to the BEI or something happens to the polling place, you're talking primarily of suspensions that last only until the problem exists. Ibig sabihin, kung ang problema natin ay yung BEI ay nagkasakit, then we will suspend the elections only for as long as it takes us to find the new set of BEI, which means it's probably going to be, the elections will probably continue in a day or two at the most, right? So this is the sort of thing that we're anticipating, not the whole scale or long-term suspensions that some people are pushing.
Well, you're assuming that these kinds of surges will be isolated, no? But what if it happens that it's entire precincts or even regions? What do we do then?
You had a guest earlier who said that only Metro Manila, only NCR is moderate risk, because what we're seeing. Yes, right now, exactly. And prior to this, even Metro Manila was not even moderate risk, right? So we understand that no one can actually predict the course of the disease, but we feel that on balance we will be able to accommodate the changes in the situation as we get closer to election day. Again, this is a problem of the moment as well, right? This is not necessarily how everything will be until May 2022. So we're going to have to take it as it comes. It's a little difficult and probably unwise to speculate as to the outcome of or the situation of the disease on election day, except to say that we are preparing for the worst case scenarios.
Sir, but what about February 8th?
Part of the worst case scenarios, of course, we're looking at officials, election officials, the representatives of the system, and so on. But what about worst case scenarios for citizens, outbreaks in communities, and so on, that can essentially keep a lot of voters away from precincts? How does that factor into the scenarios that you will contemplate and consider?
Again, Comelec has the authority to suspend elections when the conditions for free and fair elections do not exist. So if that sort of epidemiological problem happens, then Comelec will assess the situation, whether or not, given the circumstances, free and fair elections are still possible. If they are, then we will continue with the elections. If not, then we will suspend appropriately.
Case by case, there's no magic number to be crossed in terms of percentage of potential voters and so on.
There is none. There is none.
Okay.
Do you have any new rules related to the pandemic in relation to campaigning? Any new rules, especially for political parties?
So far, ma'am, not. We've already published the in-person campaigning rules, and we have not had the occasion to modify them yet. Basically because they haven't even been used yet. So right now, we're still monitoring the situation to see if new rules will indeed become necessary. But for now, the rules are as they are.
Yes, sir, but the campaign does start for the national positions on February 8th. That's just
right.
a few weeks away. And that's probably around the same time na baka mag-peak yung surge, not just in Metro Manila, but possibly even in the provinces. So are you looking at any possible modification of the campaign rules?
There's no basis for modifications right now except speculative fears, right? Again, if the science doesn't bear it out right now, parang wala tayong basis to actually amend these rules as they are. The rules themselves are calibrated to accommodate different levels of threat. So we feel that these rules are adequate at the moment.
Paano kung tamaan yung mga election personnel themselves? That's what's happening now in the hospitals. Ano yung contingency plan nyo in case a lot of infections affect the performance of the Comelec?
We are seeing some of our people getting affected right now, but so far, our solutions have mostly been palliative. We've been meeting the challenge as it happens. Wala po tayong as you described it, parang plan B for this, because ultimately there is no possible plan B. What can we do? Have an entirely new set of election officers? Hindi naman pwede yun, no? So we will meet the challenge as it happens.
So walang reserve election officers, wala.
Wala pong ganun.
Kung sakala for election day, walang ganon.
Well, we do have a system of deputies, di ba? So I mean, yeah, we do have election officers and we do have deputies to existing election officials. So that will have to do.
Is there any situation that can warrant a suspension or a postponement of the elections?
Again,
I mean, if we went through, I know it's speculative, but kunyari yung nangyayari ngayon na surge na we're looking at an attack rate of 89 over 100,000, that's pretty considerable, no? If that happened on election day, is there anything in the law that warrants, a postponement?
Yes, ma'am. As I said, if the conditions for free and fair elections don't exist, then the elections can be suspended. But the suspension will be limited to the place that's affected. And second, the suspension will only be for such time as the problem actually exists. So if, let's say, you have a problem, let's say, with election with the Board of Election Inspectors being struck with COVID, then you will suspend for as long as it takes you to get a new batch of Board of Election Inspectors. If you're talking about a great number of voters being struck by COVID,
Yeah, like NCR level.
yeah, this does not.
Buong region.
Does this really affect the elections? There is no minimum number of voters required for elections to be valid. An argument might be made, of course, if, let's say, a vast majority of voters no longer are able to vote. But if voters are able to vote, then they should be able to vote.
Will you, for example, try to add more voting centers para lang to promote distancing and accommodate more voters on election day? Kasi you're not planning to hold 2-day voting, di ba?
No,
You're
we're
just
not, ma'am.
extending it. You're just
No, we're not.
extending it. So ang pwede dagdagan yung sites. Are you contemplating that?
We're already pretty much set on having 800 voters per precinct, and that gives us around 105,000 polling places. This is already up from previous levels where we had about 94,000 polling places. So we've already increased the number of polling places precisely to bring down the number of voters per precinct.
What about the debate, sir? Tuloy ba yun? What are the plans for a debate? Because that's what we have to be, I mean, at least on our side, no, yung mga media, yan ang dapat namin paghahandaan.
Well,
when
the debate-
are we, yeah.
Yes, po. The debates will start in February. We'll have debates in February, March, and April, basically once a month. So that's for the duration of the campaign period. The debates will be in person for the debaters themselves, meaning to say that they will be physically present at the venue and they will be able to debate in front of each other. However, there will be no live audience. So the audience will be virtual or from television. As far as coverage is concerned, these venues will be open to all media so that each media outlet will be able to air their own coverage of the debate. The debate will be organized by the Comelec to ensure that participation is high. One of the things that we've learned over the years is that if a debate is organized by the Comelec, there is a very good chance of 100% compliance among the candidates. So that's...
Pero hindi compulsory, no?
Hindi
I mean, they still will have the option to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Thank
Comelec
you.
spokesman James Jimenez, sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight.
Salamat po.
Thank you, sir.
Maraming
Ingat po.
salamat po.
Thank you.
That'll be all for this edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Now, before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Madeline Gao.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay and we are One News.